If there is only one thing you need to learn and understand about Magna Carta 1215, it's this. Magna Carta 1215 is the sole peaceful means known to humankind by which the rights of the weakest, most innocent citizens can prevail over a massive, potentially corrupt and oppressive state power. This is the voice of freedom, Magna Carta 1215 Learning Centre. Welcome to your next lesson with hosts Fitzroy and Carl. And good evening, folks. Welcome to the show. Fitz is going to join us very shortly. I just wanted to do a little housekeeping before we get going. So good evening to everybody who's already in the chat tonight. We're on multiple channels. I'm only seeing some of those channels. In the description, you'll see what's happening for tonight's show. I'm about to punch up into the main chat the links to the full videos, bits of which you will see in tonight's program. If you feel the urge after you've seen the bits that we have, just go into the chat and you'll see them there. I'll post them again towards the end or at the end of the show, and I'll try and make an adjustment in the description once it's all uploaded. Last Friday night, if you happen to be watching, I just want to apologise. Absolutely mortified. We spent hours making sure that the two different sort of systems we had going were working, and wouldn't have been possible without the help of a man named Selwyn, who was unbelievable in the help that he gave us on Friday afternoon. And then, act of God, act of stupidity, whatever you want to call it. Somebody pushed a button. That somebody was me, and shouldn't have been pushed, and it all went to shit. So I'm very sorry to everybody who missed out on the first 14 minutes of audio and the sort of issues that we had trying to stream multiple cameras on one channel, being None 2K, and everything off the laptop and whatnot came off into the other channels. It was poorly put together. We were also going to launch Project Matilda, which you will see tomorrow. We will do some Project Matilda stuff live. So all in all, it just was just a technical thing, and as I kept said to the folks on the night after the show, and I apologise to them, that it's just we're trying to merge two very different forms of technology to do something that really neither of them are built to do, and that's simply because we don't have enough money to buy the $10,000 or $14,000 box that makes that all possible in the world of television. So anyway, that's the short end of the stick in the story, and I just wanted to apologise to all and sundry if you happen to watch the bloody abysmal mess that the show turned into in Harvey Bay, and I want to apologise to the viewers. In fact, the people in Harvey Bay had a ball, and can I just tell you, thank you, Harvey Bay. What a magnificent town. What a magnificent bunch of folks. We had a wonderful evening. Some great live music from Stretch, both before and after the show. Really, really wonderful night out. Our hosts, Di and Ron, at the Pier House. Folks, if you want to stay at a B&B in Harvey Bay, I cannot highly recommend enough Di and Ron's Pier House. Look it up, the Pier House. Absolutely spectacular venue. And two of the most beautiful hosts you would ever hope to meet. And they've got a variety of options there for you if you want to go and stay. They didn't pay me for the plug. And I just wanted to say they're just such wonderful people. I couldn't say not talk about them. And their beautiful little girl, Zelda. If you have a dog, depending on the size and shape of that dog, it could be quite welcome. So, but Zelda does rule the house. Let's just be aware of that. So thank you to everybody in Harvey Bay. We met some fabulous folks, Dave and I, and it was pretty cool for he and I to actually meet first time too. So we had an absolute ball. Anyway, I've taken enough time tonight to apologise to all and sundry. I am right now hitting into the chat the links that we were talking about earlier to, there you go, bang, hopefully. They will take you to some of the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. And can I just ask you to put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen? Sometimes I don't know whether or not to... these days, I'm really starting to want to call him Sir, which I know sounds a little bit weird, but at any rate, Fitzroy Sterling, Good evening. How are you, my good friend?
Good evening, Carl. I've just been enjoying some of the comments. What was the one? You need to get out there and start the sausage sizzle. That was pretty amusing. So just thought I'd bring that one up. That was a good one. You're going to do the
Thank you.
bunny.
I'd just like to acknowledge the comments that I got after the Friday night show. A lot of people were saying I need I need permanent technical support. A lot of people were telling me where I could shove my microphone to better effect. It was a very interesting night. So thank you to all and sundry for helping me with directing me in that regard. I appreciate that. And yes, thank you to the Galactic Larrikin Bradford himself, who has stepped up to become the technical guru of the club. And so at our next broadcast, where we go live from a venue, in that sort of sense, then Bradford hopefully will be pushing all the buttons, and I'll just be standing there or sitting there and doing what I do best, which is open my mouth and yak. So hopefully we have a plan to fix that. And yes, we're still raising money to buy further equipment so that, oh God, if you could have seen the daisy chain of equipment we had linked up together the other night to try and make this work fits. Well, let's hope we've got that sorted by the time we get to Singleton. Oh, did I let that slip out? All right, we're not going to say that too much more. That's just a hint. How's your week been, Fitz?
Yeah, really quick. So it seems to be the case these days. It sort of flies by, and back on Monday, which is one of my favorite nights of the week. So I'm happy to be back. Everyone who's saying hi, thank you. Irish Muzzle Flash, thank you so much for saying hi. Yeah, so when you're ready, we can get cracking today. I'm hoping we can go and do a bit of a recap, because I think we're about less than 13. That makes it about 3 months. To tie up some of the things we've been going through and show how it might have seemed off topic for the past couple of weeks. Hopefully the idea is to try and show why I've gone into more natural law understanding, and sort of tie it all up and how it links to the Magna Carta. So tonight it'll be a little bit more meat and potatoes. Let's hopefully that's just going to reaffirm the knowledge that we've been putting out so far, and just help lock it up and tie it up in a neat bow, so to speak. That's kind of the aim anyway. So fingers crossed, hopefully able to help people along really understanding how it's all linked together. So we're going to go back through some basic fundamentals. Yep, we're going to go back over some basic fundamentals and hopefully really knot that up. So when you're ready, my friend.
Law, an existing condition that is both binding and immutable. It exists in both the present and in perpetuity. That means permanent and across all realms.
Yeah, so just wanted to reaffirm, we hear that word law a lot, like you hear parliamentarians using it, you'll hear police using it, you'll hear the courts using it. What they're really saying is a superstition. They're not speaking about law. So a law is something that is out of our control. That's the true nature of a law, because it binds us with that, regardless of what we believe, right? The things that government and all the other institutions I just spoke about are calling law are a private superstition. So we want to make that big distinction between the two. So this is just a way to reassert that. Like when we first started introducing the word law, I wasn't speaking about the opposition to that is a superstition, but that's pretty much what we're running. And that's what's being sold to the people as what is law. And the reason why they use the word law, because law has an imprint in your psyche, right? When you hear the word law, it's something you can't argue against, right? It's just something that is. So that's why they use that word. So they're getting their superstition to be a law just by saying it is, right? Because it actually imprints on your psyche, and you go, well, I can't argue with that because it's a law. So just wanted to, start there, so we understand that a law is something we don't control, but we are bound to, and it's permanent, and it's always been in existence and before us, and it's going to be even when we're not here.
Natural law, a system of dynamics built into the universe that are binding and permanent, a body of universal spiritual laws that act as the governing dynamics of consciousness.
Yes, so again, it's pretty much linked to the same thing of what law is, right? The key words here are binding and permanent, but it also has now another component, and that's the universal spiritual laws. So that's beings like us that have what's called holistic intelligence. We have access to another aspect of natural law, which is those spiritual laws. So, it's what the consequences are for the actions that we do, which I can see you've moved into the next component. So we ran this last week, so hopefully I won't spend too much time on this one.
Okay, natural law, deterministic component. That which is predetermined is natural law. Natural law has two key components. The first, the laws that affect the material world. The second, the set of spiritual laws that act as the governing dynamics for the consequences of the behavior of conscious beings with holistic intelligence.
Yeah, so pretty much what I just said a moment ago. There's two aspects. If you're part of the natural world and you don't have a conscience, then you're only bound by the laws that affect the material world. But if you are like what we people are, we have a conscience, and therefore we're also bound to the second aspect, and that is to choose to work with the laws that we understand that are inherent in nature, or to refuse them. And then there's consequences that come with that. Because we have the spiritual dimension to ourselves, we're bound by those consequences.
All right, natural law's random component. The ability for beings with holistic intelligence to choose to either accept or reject truth. Those that reject truth have no understanding of natural law, therefore do not accept the responsibility for the consequences of their choice.
So this one, I wanted to use the example that I was sort of running off last week with the dart, what did I call it? A juicy dart. The people who've taken
Yes.
that. So if you think about, if we go back into what would have been their motivation to take that, right? For a large part, it would have been something about going along to get along, right? They just don't want to make the waves, and they don't want to be a bother,
Yes.
or want to keep their job. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to be socially isolated or
Want to pay their
excluded.
mortgage, want to pay their rent. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah, so this is like that immediate gratification, right? That they need to get that gratification immediately, right? They need to release that tension of the fear of what will happen if they don't do it, right? So the way the natural law works is that you don't usually, not in every case, like if you go kick a brick wall, you're pretty much going to work out that was a bad idea because you're going to be in pain straight away, right? But not every action has that immediate consequential effect, right? So these people who took these darts, right, some of them will have the immediate consequential effect, but some of them won't. And the ones that won't, they'll be going, well, what's the problem, right? I don't get it. And so what they don't understand is when they take something that goes against their own integrity and they insist that others must join in, that there's that energy behind, there's something wrong with you if you don't do this. What they've done is they've set off like a domino effect. And that domino, it's not like the dominoes, you can see them and they're right around the corner and they're going to hit you in the back, right? There's a time lapse between whatever you set off into the ether, between when it comes back. But when it comes back, it's going to collect a whole bunch of other issues on the way. And by the time it hits you, right, it could be a year, it could be 2, it could be 3. You're never going to make the connection between what happened, what initiated it in the first place. That's the thing that people just don't get. They go, oh, well, that's got nothing to do with what I did 3 years ago. That's that thing, because they don't understand how karma works. And so that's why they can reject it, because there's usually for these actions, there isn't like an immediate blowback with these sort of subtle things. It takes time for that to accumulate and come back to us. And by the time it does, most people are just totally oblivious to the connection between what they set off in action, years ago. And so this is us as a society right now. We are living those consequences for what all the future generations before us and what we've done in our time have agreed to accept without really understanding its true consequences. Now we're right at the precipice because of that. Very few people are actually going to make that connection between, the actions they set off, the previous generations, et cetera, what they accepted, are going to understand that this is why we're living this life today.
Okay, moving on. Natural law. Knowing how the science of these laws operates, one can choose to act in alignment with natural law and help to manifest divine order and freedom, or in opposition, which manifests violence, chaos, and slavery, also known as self-inflicted suffering.
Yeah, so that's kind of just pretty much what I said a moment ago. Like, we've been living in self-inflicted suffering. We've not been aware that we've been party to it. we've always believed that if there's any kind of suffering, it's someone else's fault. Someone else is doing it to us. And that's the way it has to work in order for us to keep accepting being our own inflictors of suffering. We need to always believe that it's an external thing beyond our control, that we have no say in it. That's the mind trick that's underway. And so the reason why knowledge is hidden from people, right? Why it's occulted, the word occult means to hide from the eye, is that if people are actually aware of the true nature of how natural law works, they would never ignore their actions having some effect on what's coming back to them. They'd be pretty hypervigilant about it. And you can't have a control structure where people are in acceptance of truth. It won't work.
So a lot of people would call this karma. You're talking about karma.
Yeah, that's that second component of natural law. We are bound by the choices we make, that we set something off. So if we act in a way that's in service of other people's well-being, well, generally what's going to come back is more well-being. Like that ripple effect, it's going to come back three times stronger. But if we set off an action that's in denial of people's well-being, right, that it's taking from it, what's going to come back in threefold is, an intense version of stripping away not only other people's well-being, but our own, because we're all connected to each other. And so that's why I use the example of where the society has ended up now in the precipice, because you've got to imagine how many people have joined in on that. Like pretty much the bulk of the population has been party to it. Whether they've been aware of it or not is irrelevant, because it doesn't matter what you know. It matters what's actually being manifested into reality. So that doesn't change.
Sure.
Whether you're aware of it is totally different. So this is like what's called the natural law expressions. And I wanted to get a bit of time on this one. And I'll use the police as a really good example of that column on the right-hand side, the negative side. So if you see at the top, it says generative polarity. So a polarities mean two extremes of, one like day and night. They're sort of polar opposites. So you've got love and fear as being opposites to each other. And so we're going to move on to the right-hand side where the negative is. And it should say unconsciousness under fear. Now, I'm going to use the police as an example, right? It's just that the screen's really small, so I'm guessing that's what it says from memory. So we're going to use the police as an example, right? So you're a man or woman who decides they wish to be a police officer, right? And so in your mind, you might have a few things going on as to why that would be. One, I would guess, is that you don't need you don't need to go to university to get this job, but you'll get paid better than some people who go to university, right? So that's going to be a pretty attractive or appealing thing. So you don't need to have any kind of serious intellect. Well, actually, you don't at all, because they actually profile you to make sure that you're not too clever and you're not too capable of actually discerning things for yourself. So they're actually looking for a lower grade of intelligence, right? Or intellect, should I say. And then they go program the bejeebers out of you, right, after that. So, they need a specific type. Now, this individual, already is going into a place where fear is rampant. So they're already willing to give in to more fear. And the reason why they possibly want that job, the story is they want to be, a service to the community. That's the external story. Yet truly, if they were really honest with themselves, there'd be something to do with their level of self-esteem. That's sitting underneath that, right? Because how many times do you get those control freaks that end up being in the police force? There's plenty of them, right? So we go, already fear is present, right? And they're not really fully conscious of what they're actually giving their energy into. So that means that now in this state, if you look at the next one, the initiating expression of ignorance, right? That's refusal of truth, right? Because fear, when you're in that fear state, you are not open to truth. You are wanting to shut it down. So they're in this state, right? So now, once you're in that state of ignorance and you're refusing truth, you're in confusion. So what confusion means is that your thoughts, actions, and emotions are in contradiction to one another. So the three aspects of your consciousness are actually working against each other. So that's what every single police officer or man or woman who puts on that costume is in that state. And they're totally unaware of it, because how can they be, right? They're refusing truth. They're in a state of confusion. And so not only are they what they call porch slaves, that's the term that the dark priest class have for them, they are actually enforcers of the slavery without being consciously aware of it. because they've bought the story of, that they are doing a service to the people. It doesn't matter that they tell them in the academy that they have to lie. That's actually a part of their job. Their consciousness doesn't go, hang on, how does that make sense, right? If I'm about what's just and right, why do I need to lie? Right? So they're not challenging these things at all. Right? They just go, okay, that's what we have to do to get to the truth. Then we got to lie to get to the truth. That's fine. Like, where does that make sense on any level, right? So these are the things they're willing to accept. So their ego now is kicking in and suppressing their consciousness, to get them to believe that this is just and right. If I've got to cut a few corners, then it means justifies the end. That's the story that they swallow, right? And so they've already set that up before they even release them out on the public. Now let's fast forward to what's happened over the past couple of years with the way that police have been dealing with the public. If they didn't set up that idea that they need to cut corners to get to the end, if that wasn't already set up, there's no way they could have got them to do what they were doing to the people. It never would have happened. So they operate out of fear, because when they were told they had to go, do these things, and most of them didn't want to, well, they've already got a precedence of actually going against their conscience. So it's not like a new phenomena for these people. They're already broken before they started. The job that they were doing has already breaking them day by day, because otherwise they wouldn't be into alcohol and other illicit substances, which they won't tell you about. They wouldn't be miserable on the inside, trying to hide from their misery. That's why they take the substances. If they were living a full, life where they were living in integrity, this wouldn't, this is natural law at play. This is them standing against their conscience, and this is the dominoes that have been set off, and it's all coming back on them day to day. And then what do we have? We have, a system of chaos, and violence on the planet. And they are the ones who are the instigators of the majority of the violence, because it's state-sponsored. So, when they were, I'm hearing stories about that they were paid $4,000, some of them, to show up at those protests, right? Because you imagine that, right? And so that's someone who's
I'm
willing
not surprised, but
to take the carrot, you know what I mean, in order to jump over their conscience. And so the fear is fear of missing out. So they're using reward, and at the same time, what I've been told, they were squeezed really hard, if they weren't going to comply. There's a lot of disciplinary action coming their way. And so they're like, I'm just one man. I'm not going to stand against this entire machine. So better I just go with the flow, right? Go along to get along. So they are the classic example of what fear consciousness does. And who have we got who's dictating terms to us? The police. So you've got these fear robots, right, that have been granted this authority to carry these, deadly weapons, lethal ones, and they're not afraid to use them. So they're actually part of the insistence of slavery. And because they're just thinking about their own immediate situation, as long as, I can get what I need, if this is how I'm going to pay my mortgage, then that's what I'm going to do, right? That's that instant gratification. That's the tenet of first tenet of Satanism, which is self-preservation at any cost. It's indulging of the ego. Whatever I got to do to get what I want justifies what I got to do it, right? That's the true nature of it. Now, if we go to the other side, the positive side, when you're in that what's called love consciousness, that's like universal love. It's not the same love as you imagine that you would have for a family member or a partner. It's your willingness to accept truth. That's the true nature of what that means. That you're open to accepting the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. Now, Jordan Maxwell, he's spent his career saying that the one thing he's learned is that people do not want the truth. That's what he's learned in his 50 years. And unfortunately, I found that to be exactly correct. And that's the sad state of affairs. Because the truth isn't what you want, it's what is. And we all have our preferences and biases, and that's okay, but that doesn't mean we need to be governed by them. We can still step back and go, well, hang on a second. If I go and follow my beliefs, how is that going to impact, the majority? A lot of people don't do that because there's no culture in place for that to happen. Now, I'm seeing that Carl might have dropped out, guys. So I just want to check that you are hearing me. So in the comments, if you want to just let me know if I'm coming through, that'll at least tell me that I'm here until we're having the gremlins come in there. So obviously I might have said a few things that are upsetting them. Yep, it just looks like it's me, and I can see my my icon bouncing back and forward. So until Carl comes back, can hear me? All right, fantastic. All right, thank you guys. I'm going to see if I can bring up you won't have the visual of it. So I'm going to see if I can bring up just on my screen for me, which you guys won't see, the actual PowerPoint that Carl's using, so I can at least work off that to go into the.
Hello.
Oh, you're back.
Finally.
I was
Sorry.
just about to bring up a PowerPoint and just talk to people through it without the visual. But
there you go. I'm sorry. I don't know what it is. At this time every night, my connection, for whatever reason, stops working. It's a few minutes to 8 every night. And I've just kicked over to the mobile to hotspot it. So I'm afraid my audio at my end at least got very scattery towards the end. So where did you get up to? Last I heard, we were, I think, around internal expression.
Yeah, so we're just finishing off on love, and I was speaking about love is acceptance of all truths that are universally verifiable, right? That we can actually, we have a connection to in a way that there is no disagreement. I was just finishing off on that, and then I was going to go into knowledge. So didn't really miss much. I was actually just checking if people were hearing me, and you were off and I was on.
Yeah, so, no, the system works well. One of us drops out because the way it works, folks, is essentially everything is held in the cloud. So if one or the other parties drop out, everybody else is still connected, even if I'm the one that instigated the meeting, like I did. So yes, if I ever drop out, you're still on until I come back. So it's all good. Made the tragic error early on of leaving one of these things running for 2 days. It was nobody was in it, but yeah. All right.
So I'll just move on to knowledge now. So if you're in acceptance of truth, then that means you're receptive to knowledge, right? So that means you're willing to acknowledge and accept that which is verifiable, right? Regardless of what your belief system is. And what that leads to is sovereignty. And sovereignty is the expression of that knowledge, right? Of that acceptance. It's your capacity to actually express it through your actions. And only then can we have a life that we define as freedom. Now, freedom, is, as you can see, it says, what does it say? Something about anarchy. I can't read the first word. Under freedom.
External anarchy.
Yeah. So external anarchy means there's no ruler from outside. There's no one ruling us from outside of us, right? That we are our own masters. That's what freedom is. We cannot have a system of self-elected masters that rule other people. That's not freedom. And so if we want to actually live that life where we are our own masters, so we are the masters of the kingdom of self, then it requires us to act out our knowledge, our acceptance of truth, to actually understand what the specific actions are that will generate that expression of freedom into reality, right? And then once that happens, what we have is the opposition of chaos, which is divine order, right? Because true freedom means that there is some kind of order in place, right? There is a way that we are interacting with each other that is respectful.
We are building a community. We are working as one. I was going to say, we need to point out that there would be, I hesitate to use the word government, because government at the moment has such evil and bad connotations to it, and has been nothing but ripping us off blind. But for the sake of the argument, so people understand that there would be a form of system of governance, let's call it a council, if you will. There will be, there will not be anarchy. There will be elected representatives.
Actually, we need to just clarify that word anarchy. That's incorrect. Anarchy means no slavery. So there will be anarchy. What there won't be is chaos. So they've done the confusion. They've got people confused with thinking anarchy means chaos, but it doesn't. It's the actual opposite. Because anarchy means absence of a ruler, but the dark Cabal class have got you to believe that anarchy means absence of rules, which is not, which is incorrect. Anarchy means there are rules, that we abide by rules because we need to abide by rules in order for freedom to exist. So we understand that in order for us to interact with each other peacefully, there needs to be a code of conduct that we do it, that exists.
System we follow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we'll get into that a bit deeper, but that's pretty much the essence of a divine order. Means that we respect each other's freedoms and we won't do anything to encroach on it. That someone else's freedoms are as precious as our own. So we treat them the way we want to be treated, right? It's really that simple. And most of us understand that. We don't really need an education to know that.
Now, the New Ages are going to have a conniption because I see the word manifestation there.
Well, here's the thing about the New Age, right? It was actually invented by the Satanists. So those people...
That's what they're saying. They're saying you're a Satanist. They're saying you're using words like manifestation, you evil bastard.
But think about it. I've actually been exposing what the whole system is. So how would that make sense? If I was a Satanist, why would I be exposing how they run the system and going into all that depth behind it? Like, it doesn't.
Well, somebody also suggested, I'll be honest and say someone also suggested you're a jilted Freemason.
Yes, you'll get all kinds of things, right? I mean, none of those things make any sense, but, feel free to make accusations because all they do is they pump the same system that you're actually saying you're fighting. So that's at the end of the day, when we start accusing each other of certain, that we're this and we're that, we're actually putting our energy into that divisive system.
I should point out that both of us have been accused of being Freemasons. I don't know that I've shared that with you.
Well, I'm in good company then, aren't
I? Absolutely, and I can assure you, I have grilled Fitz. He has grilled me. We are sure neither of us are goat worshipping, skirt wearing, and whatever the hell that is that they do in those buildings kind of people. We are not Freemasons, so we are not affiliated with anything other than truth, light, and love at the end of the day. I think that's how we put it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this is just a path of truth discovery, right? We're just pulling out the tools that have been set out to do that. All I'm doing is I'm showing you where they exist and how to use them. That's it. If that makes me... Well, Freemasonry, actually, I need to give some clarity to that. There's two sides to Freemasonry, right? There's the light Freemasonry, which is all about truth discovery, and then there's the dark one. So when most people speak about Freemasonry, they're actually meaning the dark Freemasonry, just like the dark occult. There's also a light occult as well. So there's two sides to everything. There's a polarity in everything. So we need to be specific. I'm guessing when people are accusing you and I being Freemasons, they're saying the dark Freemasons is what I'm guessing.
I'm figuring yes. And the dark Freemasons seem to take over after a certain level. The light Freemasons are the ones who sort of are lower level people. But yeah, as you get higher up, the darker it gets. And you and I clearly must be involved somewhere, according to some of the trolls that we've been able to attract. God love them.
That's pretty much par for the course. It's always going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
That just comes with the territory, I'm afraid.
Are you happy to move on to the next slide?
Yep, absolutely.
Common law, man's best interpretation of natural law into the physical realm through the use of consciousness as the conduit. It captures the shared reality of our intuitive sense of justice and injustice, which is permanent and self-evident. Yeah,
I reckon that one says pretty much, it's pretty much street language, that one. I know I don't use street language all the time.
I'm glad. Just pause. Pause. I think now everybody stopped laughing. Okay? That you use street language.
Hopefully on this occasion I have.
Okay, man's best interpretation of natural law. This is what common law is. Man's best interpretation of natural law into the physical realm through the use of the conscience as the conduit. So to put that in a layman's term, Fitz, that is common law is Jiminy Cricket. He is the consciousness prick or the conscious prick that you feel or don't feel, as the case works. It captures the shared reality of our intuitive sense of justice, so the things that we believe to be right and the things that we believe to be wrong, which are permanent things, like killing someone is never right. Well, no, let's not speak in absolutes there. But yeah, permanent and self-evident. So just give me a layman's interpretation of that rather than a street one like you've written.
Yeah. Well, when I was saying street, I was thinking layman's. So obviously, that has a different interpretation right there. So basically, when you said it's a prick, it's like a knowing that exists that you can't explain. It's just there. So that's like your gut instinct, that we would all agree upon. Like if I was to roll out about 10 different scenarios right now, I'm willing to bet
Yep.
that unless there's someone who deliberately just wants to go against the grain, that everyone who's in this feed would be giving the same answers, right? 10 different scenarios that you might live in your life that most people on this feed, unless they wanted to go against the grain, would give out the same answer. That's that intuitive understanding of what people call right and wrong.
Yep.
That's pretty much what that's saying. Like we're just ingrained with that knowledge.
Beautiful.
So I'm hoping that's pretty simple.
Conscious, made up of two words, con, that's a Latin prefix for together, with, and science, which is derived from the Latin verb sciere, and that means to be aware of or to learn, to know intimately. Conscience is the conduit to objective truth, discovery for beings with holistic intelligence, truth, laws inherent in nature that govern the universe.
I'm hoping that's really simple, right? Your conscience is something that is pretty much your discovery path to what we can all agree, on without any sort of controversy. That's pretty much the best way I could explain it. And it happens instinctively.
There are various different or degrees of conscience I would proffer you. As children grow up, and I'm thinking back here to me being, under 10, kids do different things. Some kids are braver, some kids... and I'm thinking back to a moment in my life where we still had Guy Fawkes night. We were allowed to buy crackers, and even as young as we were allowed to go out and play with them. There were some older boys from me who found a blue-tongue lizard and put a penny bunger in its mouth and let it off and killed the lizard. And I found that very difficult to understand and deal with. And if I had have done that, my conscience wouldn't have let me sleep for I don't know how long. And yet they didn't seem to have that. Now, that they too were very young, a bit older than me, but young. And I don't know what they grew up into or how they grew up. But like I say, varying different degrees of conscience there. So how does that play out as you get older, do you think?
So let me just address what you've said. The conscience is always the same. It's the ego that gets in the way. So what you're expressing is not conscience. What you've just explained is someone's ego, their desire to get what they want, that overrides their true understanding of the actual consequence of that. Because the classic example is, you look at a lot of young kids, right? When you go and explain to them their actual actions and how it felt for others, you watch their face that goes all frozen and stiff and they go red. Well, if they didn't have a conscience, none of that would happen. So they already know that, but they've jumped over it because their desire to get what they want has overcome them. So that's the egoic state taking over. And we confuse that.
But then they don't recognize that. They recognize that they've been caught out and they're embarrassed. That's their first reaction. That's why they're going red.
Yes, except why would they be embarrassed, right? There has to be a reference in there.
True.
If there's no reference, they would just never get embarrassed. They go, I don't know, what's your problem?
Do you feel that that's a waking point for them, like a lesson waking point for them? Or if it's not...
Depends how it's delivered. If it's delivered in a way where they're going to be shamed for what they're doing, then no, they'll get more resistance and they'll keep doing it. If it's delivered in a way where they get to decide for themselves, where there's no shame attached to it, right? It's just information. And then they get to choose what they do with it. Because remember what was said earlier, truth is about the true authority of truth is you get to accept or refuse it. So it depends how it's delivered. The delivery is everything.
True. All right, moving on. Common law, a set of non-negotiable conditions necessary to preserve the natural flow of giving and receiving from the heart.
Yeah, so as a lot of people talk about what our natural state of being is, that we're, naturally competitive and we're naturally violent and we're naturally aggressive and we're greedy, selfish, those kind of things. You hear that. Our true
Jealous,
natural,
yeah, all those
yeah,
things, yeah.
jealousy, envy, right? Our true natural state is that we're programmable. And it's the conditions we live under that decide how we are. Yet, I use this example because I really enjoy it, because most people can connect with this. Imagine that you're walking down the street with someone that you know, and all of a sudden they trip over. Most people, without realizing it, will just go, "Oh my goodness," or some version of that. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" That'll just happen. It even happens sometimes with strangers. Now,
Yep.
if we weren't naturally caring about other people's well-being, that would never trip out of our mouths without our having any control over it. So those cues exist, but we're just not paying attention to them because our
Okay.
consciousness has been turned into looking at the worst part of human behavior, which has been stimulated by the conditions we live under.
So I agree 100% with the example you just used. Somebody, whether it's somebody you know and are walking beside, they trip over, or just somebody close to you coming out, particularly if they're older. People will always ask, "Stop, help, are you okay?" Well, most people. Now, with the internet, every kid has a phone, they go to school. How many times have we seen on the internet where children, and adults for that matter, are involved in fights or altercations, and they're people just standing there filming? In fact, people have lost their lives because, and we've seen it, because people have stood there with a phone filming it rather than doing anything about it. So, where is how is that balanced out with what we've, discussed
Yeah,
with
well,
this so far?
that's a perfect one. That's programming. Like, this current generation is the most programmed in the entire history of humanity. That's all programming. That's been brilliantly done behind the scenes, very subtly. We can go into epigenetics and eugenics somewhere down the track because that'll explain that.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, right? I'll tell you this story now. I don't know tell me if I've told this story about the guy who was in prison. Have I told you that one?
Not so far that I'm remembering it, no.
All right. So this is, a lot of people mix people who are criminals that commit crimes. They confuse them with them not having a conscience with their
Yes.
ego being overactive, right? They
Haven't
mix
heard the
the two up.
story, but yeah.
So you haven't heard the story?
Nope, all good.
All right. If anyone's heard the story, guys, just let me know
Bad
in the
luck,
chat.
it's my show, you're telling it.
Okay, fair enough. Here I go. So I got told this story years ago, and I never forgot it. It just landed so deeply that it's never going to leave my body. So there was a guy who was in prison for mass murder. I don't know how many people he murdered, and they send like psychologists in to speak to different people in prison, and so for the first 5 years he'd tell the psychologist to F off. Right, that's just standard. After that, obviously she had other people to see. After that, there was some kind of small talk, and that built, and that took 4 years, to the point where they were actually having conversations, to the point where she was actually successful in getting him to engage with what he had done to other people. And then it
Right.
got to this point where she was actually successful in him getting to step into their experience. Now, this is massive, right? This is really massive, what's being delivered here, right? Because someone who does that to someone else has to be in denial of what it's like to suffer like that, right? They just have to. They wouldn't do it any other way if they couldn't deny it. So they got to the point where he was actually able to step into their experience. Now, I can't stress enough how big that is. And once he understood it, he killed himself.
God.
So if he didn't have a conscience, he never would have done that. So the guilt that he felt after that, when he really stepped into that, oh my, what it's like to suffer like this, and I did that to somebody else. We all share the same conscience, guys. It's the ego that separates how we act, not the conscience, because the ego will suppress the conscience. And when we live in a system that requires our ego to be overactive, then we live in that self-preservation system. What I said about the people who've taken the darts, right?
Yeah.
What I got to do to get what I want. That's what people accept as their natural environment, and they don't question it anymore because they just want to survive their day.
Yep, exactly right. Moving on, common law versus legal. Common law is no loss, no harm, no fraud, no violation of the peace. That means keeping the peace. The legal is expressed through what is allowed, therefore sets the limits which curtail freedom, hence the term liberties.
So why I wanted to do this is, if you have a look on the left column, the common law side, it's expressed through the negative. So this is called the apophatic. This is about explaining what something is by what it's not. Because if you tried to explain something by what it is, you'd never finish. You'd be there forever. So you'd go to the quickest way to explain it and what it's not. So, for us to live in that environment where we could actively give from the heart, where we're actually concerned about other people's well-being, because we actually understand that our well-being is linked to other people's well-being. These are the conditions that cannot be in play, right? We cannot have any conditions where there's loss. We cannot have any conditions where there's harm. There cannot be any conditions where there's deceit. And there cannot be any conditions where there's a violation of the peace, right? Because those conditions will escalate your, what's the word I'm after here?
Charge?
Gosh. No. There's a word here. It's really important. It's your nervous system. That's it. And as soon as your nervous system is escalated, you don't function from that place of caregiving. You function from fight, flight, freeze. And none of those reactions are giving to life. They're all going to be taking from life. Right. And that is our environment that we live in every day. Right. We live in a hostile, competitive environment. That's what's been constructed. And we have been party to it and being actually people who have contributed to it. And so that's why most people on the aggregate will not want to look at it, because they don't want to take responsibility for them being part of it. Because then what will happen? Their consciousness will kick in and they won't be able to bear it. And then the ego will kick in and say, don't worry about it. I'll sort it out. Do you know what I mean? I'll create a story that makes it all okay. So the legal system is the opposite, right? It's about what you're allowed to do. Now, if someone's telling you what you're allowed to do, does that mean you're free now? If they get to decide what those limits are? So that's the difference, you see?
Hardly.
It's about how it's written. And when we go down into look at the different articles in the 1215 Magna Carta, you'll see that it's all written in the negative.
Article 24. No sheriff, constable, coroners, or others of our bailiffs shall hold pleas of our crown.
Which basically means they can't hold a court. They can't run a court. That's basically what it means. So see, it starts with no sheriff. So what it says is no employee of government can actually hold court. You can't run one. So that's Article 24, right? That doesn't exist in any other constitution that I'm aware of, because none of them are. So a constitution has to reflect the will of the people. And the will of the people is that we are in charge of ourselves.
So that article alone protects, removes bail court or any kind of bail hearing today.
Yeah,
the coroner's court.
Anything that government runs or government employees, that would not exist. So that right there nullifies everything that's been going on since this country was founded as what we call Australia.
I would ask our friends from the followers of 1297 to go and see if Article 24 shows the same words in your book.
Yeah, and the rest, absolutely, and the rest of them that are here.
Yeah, Article 38, which you also won't find in Magna Carta 1297 because the evil Catholic bloody Pope who wrote, don't get me started. Anyway, no bailiff for the future shall upon his own unsupported complaint put anyone to his law without credible witnesses brought for this purpose.
So we're going to use the intervention orders that come under the Family Violence Act, right?
Yep.
What they allow is that any female can make any statement she likes and no evidence is required, and it's taken as a fact and acted upon.
That's the current
system that's been in place since 2008. Right? So you look at the opposition to Article 38 and what we have. Remember what I said about the legal system? It's what you're allowed to do, right? So it keeps changing the rules because it's all about moral relativism. Because if you deny what's law, that there's actually something that's verifiable that we can all discover, if you deny that exists, well, then someone gets to decide what it is, and guess who gets to do that?
The government.
Correct.
Okay, the government is illegal. Government is illegal only if it is trying to impose some kind of compulsory arrangement upon the people other than being judged by their peers in a natural justice tribunal, because imposing any other arrangement would require an individual contract with every citizen. That's from
Yeah.
Will
So,
Kite.
yeah. So good old Will, my friend there. Love the way he put this. So
Mm,
all government is allowed to do is that which their people agree they want for themselves. That's it. They can only facilitate that which the people already agreed to live under. Anything they do outside of that makes them immediately illegal. So let's have a look at what's been happening the last 2 years, right? That's a perfect example, but that's only an extension, an accelerated extension of what's been happening for the thousands of years before that anyway.
absolutely. All belief in government rests on the idea that the common good justifies the legal initiation of violence against innocents to one degree or another. And once that premise has been accepted, there is no objective moral standard to limit government behaviour.
I reckon that's pretty much what we've been living, right there in a
Absolutely.
nutshell, right? As soon as we accept that someone has the right that's outside of our own authority to make decisions for us without us having some kind of say in it, this is what you get. And that's why they
Abs-
created that structure and took away people's knowledge of their inherent way to self-govern. They had to do that. It wouldn't be possible. All these crimes they've done over the thousands of years couldn't have happened if the bulk of the population understood that they are inherently capable of governing themselves and that there is a mechanism by which they can make sure they can never be dominated by those they elect into their service, not into power. That word itself changes the way people understand what they believe. You know, how many people
Absolutely.
say we elect people into power? Most of the people do. Very rarely will you hear the words, we elect someone into service. But that
Yeah.
is the true nature of what government is. It's an action of service to the people by honourable people who wish to serve their fellow man and woman.
Without getting
You know,
distracted, I would compliment Malcolm Roberts. Every time he stands in the Senate, he does stand in service and says so of the people of Australia and of Queensland that he represents. We'll talk more about Malcolm at another date, though, won't we?
I reckon that's
Um,
probably a good idea.
yeah, I reckon it's got it. Let's move on to this. Article 39. No free man shall be seized or imprisoned or stripped of his rights or possessions, or outlawed or exiled or deprived of his standing in any other way, nor will we proceed with force against him or send others to do so, except by the lawful judgment of his equals or by the law of the land.
So this is
This is
really
Article
important.
39. You also won't find this in Magna Carta 1297. The Catholic Pope who rewrote the People's Constitution for the Commonwealth uh, decided this wasn't worthy of inclusion.
Well, that's why we have the 12 presumptions of canon law running in those things they call courts. You know, they
Yep,
all started way back then. So this one is really, really important because it says no. So remember how it says no loss, no harm, everything's in
yep,
a negative? Well, you see how it's phrased here? It's what you cannot do, right? So it's saying that government cannot seize any man or imprison them or strip them of their rights, right? This is what is not allowed. This is what government is not allowed to do if it is to maintain its grant of authority that we, the people, give it. Because authority doesn't exist in nature. No one has authority over anyone else. It doesn't exist. So the only way it can actually be actuated is if we grant it to certain people. And in order for us to have that trust in those that we grant authority to, there must be limitations of what they can and cannot do. So there's only one contract. It's not on us, the people. It's on those who are meant to be acting in our service. That's it. And this is a perfect example of it, of what we will allow government to do. And that is they can only come against us if we, the people, agree that that is what's required for justice. That's
yep.
it. Otherwise, then to leave us be in our natural free state. And I'm willing to bet there isn't an individual on this that's listening here today that's experienced government the way I just explained it. I'm willing to bet it.
Yep, I bet you'd be right there. Common law. Common law is the will and custom of the people. Statute law is the will of the Parliament. Parliament is made by the law. Therefore, it's not above it.
So that's why government cannot make law. They can only pass legislation, acts and statutes. That's it. And those things are temporary. And the purpose of it is to enhance our life. That's the purpose of what it's meant to do. Government is just a decision-making body, right? That's it. They just make decisions on our behalf.
Yes, but that's what people are saying they've been doing, and that's what current politicians do. And it's just that half of Australia doesn't like what one half of the government does, or the current incumbent, and the other half does, and then vice versa at the next election. So, how are we offering something different here with what we're proffering?
Because there's no accountability structure for when they do make decisions that hurt even one individual.
Yeah,
because all life is precious.
So the decisions currently made by parliamentarians have no personal repercussion to them when the results, and let's go to the pink bats debacle. I'm going back 10 years or so when Kevin Crud was in power and the red-headed clown, and they put together the pink bat scandal and then hung it all on the midnight oil guy to wear. People were dying in that because the training was insufficient, but they had to get that pink bat scheme rolled out. Insulation scheme rolled out. So that's sort of what we're talking about here, that sort of level of incompetence, and yet nobody was found guilty. Nobody was really punished in any way.
Yeah, I'd actually hazard to say that wasn't incompetence. There was a level of deliberateness about it, if you think about what they've been doing to us now, right? Because they don't value human life, those people. So for them, we're just like cannon fodder. It doesn't matter. We're just cattle, right? Yep. So I'd actually argue that I reckon it was more than just incompetence. That's just the story we accept. But yes, there would be definitely an accountability factor. But you got to think about if this was actually running, if we had trial by jury, we wouldn't have people like that at all even wanting to go into Parliament.
No, because they know they'd be swinging from a rope within a year.
Yeah, pretty quickly.
And here's why. Article 40, no one will we sell, to no one will we deny or delay right or justice.
So just before you go to the next one, that's saying government cannot sell, government cannot deny or delay the right to justice. So that's, you need to understand that when it says to no one will we means government.
Yeah.
And how has that ever happened I have no experience of that ever happening. Right? That's constantly in play. We're always denied. It's always sold to us, right? They're dipping into those trusts when they're doing it. If you're not paying for it out of your pocket right now, you're doing it behind the back door, right? And there's no justice. You know, I had someone tell me this the other day, and I never forgot it. And that is, when you step into a court, you won't get justice, you'll get law. Yeah. Like that's what these lawyers say to people.
Yep.
The two are the same thing. Justice and law are the same thing, but they're saying you're not going to get one of them. You're going to get the other. Like the two opposing things. And see how they use the word law as in this is something you can't argue against. This is something that just is. Yeah. See that mind trick that's in play? This is how they do it.
Yep, 100%. Article 61, government officials have no liability protection under the Constitution.
And that's exactly why they don't want you to know about it.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
That means that they can be taken personally to court.
Absolutely. And
by everyone that their decisions affect.
For free. And we will judge them. There's no cost. Court of law does not charge money.
Once again, you won't find Article 61 in the 1297 Magna Carta.
Absolutely not. Not a chance.
And for those proponents of 1297 Magna Carta, can you think for a moment why a Catholic Pope, a man who is singular, not a people, because people write constitutions, not singles or governments, certainly not popes, people, not a pope that was elected to his role by a shady bunch of blokes in little black suits who were elected to their role by even shadier bunches of blokes in little black suits running around in churches in our backyards for the last however many millennia. But there are so many people who believe that a bloke who didn't even speak English had the power to rewrite an English Commonwealth constitution that was signed, sealed, and delivered by the barons and the king of the day, John. And then they have the hide to say, oh, well, 1297 is just an update. Can someone please tell me exactly what sort of an update we could have expected in the 70-odd years, 75, 80 years between 1215 and 1297 that makes it so much more believable, other than these Catholic priest bastards have removed all our rights from it? Because that's all that's happened, isn't it, Fitz? They haven't taken everything out. They've just taken the main bits that give the people their rights.
Well, it's just to rephrase that, like, you can't give rights. What they did is made sure that people were willing to give away their rights.
True. And of course, it was so easy then because many were very uneducated. Nobody, certainly of the peasant class, could read or write. These proclamations were put out on bits of paper, nailed to trees and inns, and if you happened to read them, then great, and if you didn't, bad luck. And of course, the only people who could read and write, and the only people who had a telecommunications system, even though it wasn't a telecommunication system, but a communication system, was the Catholic Church, because they were everywhere. They were in every little town. And for those lovers of, Game of Thrones and that sort of stuff, how did they pass messages? They used birds. Well, that's exactly what happened. And the church passed birds with messages about what was being created in Magna Carta 1215 back to the Vatican. And the Vatican didn't like it. It took them a few years. Well, they started trying to change it immediately, but it took them a few years to finally get one through, thanks to an enlightened pope who thought he was able to rewrite a constitution. Sorry, did I rant again? I beg your pardon.
That's quite right. I just wanted to answer the question, because there's a question here from Megs. It says, do you think we will ever get justice? So I wanted to answer that by saying, as soon as every single individual who's on this thread right now starts acting in a unified way and follows the actual instructions that exist for us to finalize what Article 61 requires for us to actually get the justice. It's not going to happen until you act on it, guys. So instead of, saying, do I think? Well, yes, but that requires every single one of us to actually activate.
It requires you to stand and act.
If we don't act, it's not going to happen. So yes, I think we will, but it requires everyone to unify and work to the same goal, right? And do which is required to get it.
So everyone that's on the stream at the moment, and everyone who's watching it, later down the track, it requires you to act. It requires you to stand up. It requires you to learn and then educate others. Tell people to get onto one of the channels and start with our Magna Carta 1215 Learning Centre lessons. Start at number 1, work your way through. This is a great recap, but you really get the guts of it in the lessons that have preceded this. So, do what you can to wake others up, because the more it's going to take all of us to stand up, or at least, I reckon, better than 80% of us to stand up to actually achieve anything here. That's just the way I'm feeling it really has to sway. The constitutional common law. The will of the people is to live in peace and harmonious prosperity. The will of the people comes from the collective conscious, and the collective conscious is the universal receptor to objective truth. Oh, jumped myself up one. There you go. All right, Fitz, let's break this down.
Well, let me just see. Does that resonate with people? If the will, is it our will to live in peace and have prosperity, right? In a harmonious way? I'm willing to bet that the answer is going to be yes, right? So that's just our natural will. Like, that's our natural desire. You don't have to think too hard about it. You can just get a sense of it, right? So then what the next thing says is the will of the people comes from the collective conscious. Now, if you understand what the conscious is, that's your receptor to objective truth. So we all share the same will, right? Because we're all tapped into the same level of consciousness. Now, make sure you're not separate. You're not confusing that with the ego state. All right. I'm talking about just consciousness, that which has the capacity to access objective truth. So that's
All right,
what the true will. Sorry, carry on.
Sorry, can I just try and... This is probably going to seem pretty basic to a lot of people, but we can only move as fast as our slowest learner. And I want to put this into a context. Could we say that what we're speaking of here is a Star Trek type society where everybody, regardless of race, creed, color, or species, are accepted for what they are and what they bring, and not challenged for the color of the skin, or the fact that they've got gills or a big nose or whatever. If enough people started to build a consciousness, and here we go going back to that word manifest again, but if enough people were building that sort of a vision, is that what we're looking here, where our consciousness can help begin to bring some of this toward reality, particularly the way that our society develops a forgiving attitude to each other, and no more wars, love and prosperity for all, as this says?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is our true, what I'm going to now go out on a limb and say, this is our true natural state if our nervous system is in a relaxed environment, if it's not escalated. We are natural givers. The most joy we ever feel is when we give to another from the heart for the purpose of contributing to their well-being. You don't know any more joy than that. There is nothing you can buy, no sort of holiday you can have, no riches, earthly riches you can have will ever supersede that experience, because that's a spiritual experience. It elevates you out of this earthly connection to these material things that we've been trained into believing have this real inherent value, right? They are assisters. Yes, we need shelter to be warm. Absolutely. We need food to have nourishment. Absolutely. These are all assisters, that we require basic elementary needs met in order for us to have our nervous system relaxed. Yes, we do. But we don't need an overabundance of them. Yet we live in a system that values that overabundance of accumulation of these earthly, riches for a select number of people who supposedly just deserve them, right? This is the mind trick that's been in play, right? And they call them captains of industry, the innovators. That's what they give them, these titles that actually gives you that mind trick that they are deserving of this. And because they have this, select capacity to be able to do these wonderful things that we all get benefit from, then they deserve these, massive amounts of riches. Well, anyone who gives from the heart doesn't require a reward.
Yeah.
The reward is the giving from the heart.
I'm just having a bit of a gaze.
This is the thing that people get confused. And that's been trained into us. That's been educated into us to accept this as a truth. But it actually isn't. That's not our natural state. Otherwise, we'd never feel the joy when we give from the heart and we see the actual outcome of what that's done for somebody else's well-being. There's no greater joy. I challenge anyone to show me.
Yep, I would agree, 100%. 100%. Now, I see we've still got quite a few more slides to go. We're already running pretty well over time, and I know we still have a couple of videos that we definitely want to get to. Do you want to stop here, or do you want to keep going through the slides?
Just this last slide, and then we can stop here. No, the one you had above.
Just that one? Yep. All right. Constitutional common law. The will of the people is to live in peace and harmonious prosperity. The will of the people comes from the collective conscience, and the collective conscience is the universal receptor to objective truth.
So I know I just went over that, but I just wanted it read now after I just went over it to see if it's actually going to sink in. Like, that's why I just wanted it read over again, because we did just explain it. And now read over it without a break. I'm hoping that really makes sense now when people, when they go watch this back. So that's why I just wanted to finish on that.
Very good. All right. Now, let me come back to where we should be for this. And do you want to explain and set up our first video? Now, I'll point out, folks, I'll put the link in the chat. Which one would you like to play first? The Justin Walker?
Justin Walker one, yeah.
Roger that. So, folks, we're going to play a portion of this, but if you want to see the whole video. I'm pasting that up into the link right now. So this is a Justin Walker piece. It runs about 10 minutes, folks. Sit back. Would you like to introduce it, Fitz?
Yeah, so the actual full clip that's on the YouTube channel is about 30 minutes, and he goes into detail about the Bilderberg Group and the Trilateral Commission, and oh gosh, there's so many lists that I can't think of right now. Council of Foreign Relations, and how the banking system, and he goes into the specifics of it. But the reason why I wanted it viewed tonight is he actually uses a lot of the words that I've explained tonight, like words like common law, natural law, God's law, natural justice, things like that. He uses those words. And he also talks about his relationship with his uncle, who was actually part of the Bilderberg Group, the first meeting. And so he speaks a little bit about that. So I just wanted to set that up, that this, you've never heard of this guy, most likely, yet he actually very articulates this whole, what the information we've been trying to get out really well in a condensed way. And hopefully what I've done is been able to extrapolate that out with what we've done up until this point. So yeah, just wanted to let that run. And you're going to see a very familiar face in the bottom right-hand corner too. So I'll be interested to see if people can recognize that face.
Certainly won't be yours.
Definitely not. You got that right.
All right, here we go.
Why do we allow a mere handful of dynastic psychopaths, because that's what they are, decide how much money the world has to spend? Can somebody answer that? I can't. Why do we allow a system that literally allows a handful of families to decide how much money we all have to spend? It's crazy. Right, this is how I came into it. The gentleman sitting underneath the blue arrow is my uncle. Uncle by marriage, Sir Harry Pilkington. He was a lovely man, I have to say, and I won't say anything other. But he attended the first ever Bilderberg conference in 1954. A year later, he became a director of the Bank of England, a position he held until 1972. I went back to school on one occasion when I was 16, and we were on the train together because he was going down to one of his last meetings at the Bank of England. And we're talking about all sorts of things, and then suddenly he broke off and said, "What are you going to do when you leave school?" So I said, "I'll probably go in the family business, family regiment, whatever." And he said, "Well, look, I'm going to give you 2 pieces of advice to take through life with you. The first is, never believe anything you read in the press, because we control it. And the second thing," he said, "was never ever believe a politician when they say they can do something. They can't, unless we say they can." Do you remember we've just had the Supreme Court? A highly dubious organization, if ever there was one, because it was created in the time of Tony Blair and all that sort of stuff. But the Supreme Court made their announcement that Parliament was sovereign. Parliament is not sovereign. You are. We are. We, the people, are sovereign. And the way we do this is to refer back to Magna Carta 1215 and before then, because Magna Carta is merely enshrining what had gone before, the common law, the law of the land, God's law, common law, natural law, it doesn't matter what you call it. It is common sense, and it is the jury-led system. That is, if you go up for trial, you go before your peers, and they decide whether you are reasonable or unreasonable. They even decide what your fate should be if you were considered unreasonable, guilty in other words. But, and this is something you don't know, or at least the judges don't tell people when you're acting as on a jury has an absolute right to annul bad legislation passed by our servants in Parliament. Quite simply, they find somebody not guilty, even though the statute may have been breached by that individual. Because bear in mind, Parliament do not pass laws. They pass statutes. They're acts. They're not laws. Law is the common law. And people don't realize this. So in fact, we the people can ultimately keep control of what they get up to in Parliament. And have you noticed now that Parliament has literally created thousands of statutes to micromanage our lives? When in fact, under the common law, you are free to do whatever you like until you breaches somebody else's freedom. And that's when common sense then kicks in and you have a trial. Common law is about you don't cause harm to anyone, you don't cause loss to anyone, you don't commit a breach of the peace, and you don't conduct your affairs with mischief. Which of course is exactly what the private banking world do. And this is our secret weapon to use against them. I'm just doing a humble parking ticket. Humble parking ticket. It's great fun because I've simply said I will pay it. But first I want a letter written by a human being with a soul, written in wet ink, that PCN, parking ticket, is both legal and lawful. Oh, it's legal because the MPs or the councillors have passed it in, what is considered to be democracy. But it's not lawful because under Article 39 of Magna Carta, which, by the way, cannot be repealed by the politicians, you often hear that Magna Carta has been repealed. No, it can't, because Magna Carta was a peace treaty between a lawless king and us, the people. Not the barons. The barons in Old French means free people. Us, all of us. It wasn't just the nobility, as we're led to believe. It was for all of us. And Parliament, unfortunately for them, they cannot repeal Magna Carta 1215. The first Parliament of Simon de Montfort came in 50 years after Magna Carta. They cannot interfere with it in any shape or form. If any politician tells otherwise, they are guilty of treason. So, getting back to what we're doing. So the declaration falls into two parts. First of all, trial by jury. The second part is what we've already discussed. That is a sovereign nation creating, issuing, controlling all the money needed for our prosperity and future happiness. Right. We are organizing. You've probably seen that quite a few local groups are actually helping people who are having their houses, businesses taken off them unlawfully by the banks. Remember, the banks create money out of thin air as debt. And quite simply, we are seeing through all the paperwork. We have got people who, county courts, just give you an example. A county court, a judge acts as judge and jury. That is alien to the common law. No jury involved. That judge is guilty of treason because his oath of office is to uphold the law of the land. And we actually did arrest a judge in Birkenhead about 5 years ago now. Suddenly 500 people turned up from nowhere and took them by surprise. This is going to happen all the time now. People are waking up to the truth. So we are coming to a street near you. We are going to come with the rule of law. We're going to return back to what is rightfully ours. Right, this is the advert now. We had the Winchester Declaration. We've drawn our line in the sand. We're not retreating from that. We're only going to advance. But to advance, we've got to become a mass movement. We've got to become not organized. We're not hierarchical. We want to be linear. But we want to have hubs of activity all around, waking people up to the truth about their own past, to empower people, to show them what they can do against this evil. Because that is what's happening. Because there's one aspect I've not mentioned today, and that is child abuse and establishment-led paedophile rings. Now, I think Brian will probably touch on that in more detail. But those people in Parliament are not just stopping us from being able to create, issue and control our own money to get rid of austerity, to get rid of food banks, to get rid of suffering. But we're also seeing children on a completely unimaginable scale also suffering. And they know it's going on. They're either paedophiles themselves or they are protecting paedophiles. And Melanie Shaw is in prison, and she is a whistleblower who knows what's going on with our political class and what's really happening. And she's in prison. So we are living in a lawless country. But there are solutions. And that is now the next stage. We're going to become a movement, a mass movement, armed with solutions. Not hope, not offering change. We're coming to restore the rule of law with solutions. Thank you very much.
Wonderful bit of speech, I've got to say. I'm very impressed. All right, David Robinson is the next one. Do you want to set this one up a little bit?
Yeah, just before we go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, missed the head.
Yeah, so I did. So the one in the bottom right-hand corner. Does anyone know who that was? The face. If you do, just pop it in the comments. I am actually looking at some of the comments, and people are asking about their own private issues. If you want your private issues to go away, guys, right, you need to follow the lawful process, because it'll get rid of every single one, not just yours, but everyone else's too. So you're giving from the heart to contribute to not only your well-being, but to others as well. So if you follow the lawful process, that is what will happen. Because remember, we're following the law, and the law is truth. So, yeah. Yep, well done, David. It's Sacha Stone. Now, anyone who knows anything about Sacha Stone, you will know that he is a big advocate on the surface anyway for freedom, right? Sure. Yet he never speaks of trial by jury. Yet what was he just party to? He can't say he doesn't know about it, right? And in this next video, you might see the same face show up. Now, David Robinson is the actual founder of Practical Lawful Dissent. He's the bulk of where I got most of my information about 1215 Magna Carta from. So now we're going to see him speaking. The quality of the video is not so poor, guys. That's why we've put the link in the comments so you can see a better version of it if you go and watch the whole thing. So I've only just condensed it down to about 7 minutes. So anyway, we're going to see David Robinson talk about trial by jury. He's going to talk about the police, you know, how they're the gatekeepers, and then he's going to explain the role of the Queen as well. So when you're ready, Carl, we can play that.
Roger that. Here we go.
Is the main problem. Now, not many people have addressed what I consider to be the main problem, and which is that we do not have trial by jury courts of law in Britain or anywhere in the world as we do. And so this is what we have to reassert, is the common law jury, because it is the jurors who decide whether government statutes and acts are actually in compliance with the common law constitution. And of course they're not. And so all the problems that we are seeing, that we were listening to today, are because we are under a tyrannical regime since the usurpation of the common law juror back in 1689, which was done by the government at the time, introducing the Bill of Rights to William of Orange, who came to the throne. And since that time, we have had judges that have controlled the jurors. Since that time, we've had the judges controlling the jurors, and statutes have been continually used to destroy us in so many different ways. It's just, it's just ridiculous. So if we're looking for a main problem, that's the problem, and then we need to remedy that problem. Now, how to remedy that problem is the problem, because not so many people seem to come up with a solution. I've looked at this in its most practical way that I possibly can, and I've come up with a practical solution. I'm part of the Practical Lawful Dissent movement, and we tend to try to keep things down to its basic common denominator, and how we can remedy this situation as quickly and as peacefully as we possibly can. So we've got to recognise why the courts as they are. We don't have any common law courts in our country except for the ones that the people are now starting to convene themselves. Well, this is because the police have become the policy enforcers of the corporations, as we all know this. It's not like it's a big secret. So the solution really is to take away the gatekeepers, which are the police, take away their power. You see, police constables and government ministers and councillors and anyone in positions of service are not in positions of power. And this is something that is being concept controlled, because this is what they're doing to us all by the TV and the media, is concept controlling us into thinking that we vote people into power. Everyone says it now. Even people say, oh, we don't want to vote Tory into power next time. They're not getting it. And that changing of that one word changes the whole concept of a reality, that we should be voting people into service, honourable people, that abide by their oaths of office and the common law constitution. So that's the main problem. How are we going to remedy this? Well, the only way we've remedied this problem in the past, in history, is by the unity of the people. So we need to unify. Even if we can come together to recognise that we've got a problem and that unity is the solution to remedy the problem, but we don't necessarily have the total remedy yet. So we need to come together, put our thoughts and our education, if you like, around the table to come to a solution. Now, I think that the solution is to lobby the police en masse, because if we do this, if we do it en masse, if we go to every police station in the country, we would stop them from reinforcing each other's stations. So if we focus on like a headquarters or say Scotland Yard, they would just reinforce. So we would need something like 2 million people, I believe, to do this, to actually organise enough to go to their local police stations, because this is something that's available to every one of us. And why are you ignoring this? This is what we should be asking the police. It's just it's a natural thing that we should be doing, but hardly anyone's doing this. So I say if we were got together en masse to lobby the police, lobby the bobby, as we like to call it, because it has the right sort of sentiment. We're not going in there with pitchforks and burning torches. We're going in there saying, look guys, we're really concerned about the future. Look, they're rolling out 5G, fracking, we've got geoengineering, we've got aspartame in our sweet products, and lots of other things, vaccines. We can go through a whole great list. What are you guys doing? Do you genuinely care about the future? Now, they're very much controlled by their superior officers, as we know. So we're going to have to get it's going to come to a position where we're either going to change the police's individual minds to actually stand under their warrant cards and their oaths of office and to protect the common law constitution, or we're going to end up fighting with the police in defence of ourselves at some later date. So I'm saying, we need to come to the fact that we need to unify. That's the main thing. That's what history has shown us all along with certain revolutions, where we can actually stop tyranny of the state by unity. And so we think we need to act in truth, only truth, evidence facts. We're not talking about any hearsay here. With the fact that treason is being committed, and what treason means, people need to look into what treason means, because people don't really understand it. Treason means the destruction of our individual sovereignty, which is our individual natural-born, natural law rights. And this is very serious, because that's going to affect our children, and it's, in fact, with 5G rolling out, our children aren't going to survive for very long, and neither are we. So we are running out of time here, guys. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's what made my point.
Thank you, David. Just a quick thing, is there a website, David? Sorry.
Well, we're just setting up a new website. Our website got hacked, because obviously we're doing something right. So it's practicallawfullysaid.co.uk. It's still in its infancy and keeps getting sort of updated. So it's up and down at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you for your excellent work.
Thank you.
So I'd just like to make a point to back entirely what you've set up. One of the things that I'm fed up with hearing is when the politicians say that Parliament is sovereign. Parliament is not sovereign. We, the people, are sovereign. They are our sovereign. Sweden is sovereign. Well, that's another question. I think, come on.
So I just answer that one?
Yeah.
Because the Queen is the holder of the office of sovereign. She is, under her coronation oath obligations, she holds the sovereignty of the people in trust for the people. That's it.
That's it.
So I'm hoping that.
On and say, there you have it. Yes.
Yeah, I'm hoping that helps clarify a lot of the information that we've been rolling out. He does pretty much repeat a lot of things that have already been said. That was recorded in 2018. Now, you would have noticed the same face, Sasha Stone there, and Justin Walker. So he's had plenty of exposure to this knowledge, yet he doesn't actually go out there and spread it. I'm talking about Sasha Stone there, right? You won't hear him speaking about Magna Carta as the actual agreement that the people chose to live under, where we do have the capacity for self-governance. We don't require anything else other than to reassert it, because it's all about trial by jury. That's at the center of our capacity for self-governance, right there. He never says that, right? And he goes around America and, the whole thing, spouting the freedom movement. But why does he leave that pivotal bit of information out? This is a really, really important question people need to start asking, guys. So, if someone's there for your freedom, they want to share the knowledge that you need in order to actually act on it and not hide it from you. So I just wanted to show that. And also, if you listen to how David spoke about the difference between power and service, the difference of that language, what it does and how it imprints on your psyche, there's little subtle things. And this was recorded in 2018. And he was all over the whole fracking, the 5G stuff, before it became sexy and we all started complaining about it. He was well ahead of the curve. He even mentioned the word vaccines, right? So he knew what was coming. So, this is just how slow the uptake's been. Now, guys, you have a wonderful opportunity to act on this, right? And actually start following the process that's waiting for you to do that. So the more that we waste time, deciding there's other ways, the less likely it's going to happen. So if you do want to see your freedom and everyone else's, and in your lifetime, it requires action and there is a process. And that hopefully, have you put the link up in the group for the Telegram channel? Yep, perfect.
I have.
So
yes.
The Telegram channel link is there, guys. The process is all there. You just need to come and join in and start acting. And the more of us that do it, the more powerful it's going to be and the faster it's going to happen.
Just going to post that link up again right now. So that's to the Telegram channel, that one that's just gone in, folks. I did start a couple of questions. Why is it called Magna Carta? Marianne wanted to know. Magna Carta stands for the Great Charter. It's just Latin for the Great Charter.
Yeah, it's just an expression of the will of the people. That's pretty much all it is.
Yeah. And I wanted to thank Salty Aussie for his contribution. Thank you for your service, Salty Aussie. And I especially like the way that you've approached your tax situation. I'm in a similar boat. Yeah, great service. Thank you to everybody who's served, who's in the show tonight in the chat. Great to see a lot of lively chat and a lot of help being offered around. So tremendous that such a great group has got together. And thank you to everybody else who's watching online or watching down the track. Fitz, we've run a little longer than we had originally hoped tonight, but I think as it was a recap of the last 3 months and we've introduced 20 minutes worth of videos, we haven't done too badly.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with the content. There's obviously a little bit more we're going to need to cover next week, what we didn't cover this week. Yet the bulk of it, has been done, so I'm happy with that. I'm hoping it helps with everyone else who's been watching and who might watch in the future. We've had a link, if you've watched the previous episodes, how it all links together, and you understand why I've gone into the depth of understanding natural law and the Kabbalah structure and how they use it, why that was essential. I'm hoping this has all helped tie that together.
Absolutely. And can't reiterate enough. Go back to lesson number 1, and everyone who's watching, everybody who's listening, bring one new person to the party. I had a really interesting conversation with a fellow in Harvey Bay on a Friday afternoon. He drives 9 hours to his mining job and back again. He shares the vehicle with 4 guys who are, if you like, not necessarily on our wavelength when it comes to the way of thinking. And he's played a couple of our podcasts on the way out there, and now it's apparently regular listening on the way to the mine and on the way home. They get a couple of podcasts in. So thank you to those guys, and I'd like to say g'day to Craig and Laura in Harvey Bay, who I forgot to mention at the head of the show. Laura fell over, hurt her shoulder, and wound up in hospital. And I was to call in and see them on Sunday and just say hello and thank you. And unfortunately, or fortunately for her, she'd been checked out by the time I managed to get there. So a bit of a late time for checkout, but there you go. Congratulations on getting out early, I think is the best way of putting that. And I look forward to seeing everybody in Harvey Bay coming up soon. Fitz, we had a big chat after the live show on Friday night. A lot of people in Harvey Bay very interested in common law. They're very interested in getting you up there to see whether or not you want to see a whale and have a little get together and maybe educate a few people in Harvey Bay too. So I don't know. We're going to have to get that brown paper bag out. How are you going to deal with people in public? I don't know.
Yeah. Listen, just wanted to go back because there was a comment here and I've seen it appear twice. Can you put the Magna Carta lessons on the playlist on your channel? So just wanted to make sure. I can't remember who wrote it, but I did see it and I am actually vocalizing it. So hopefully Carl will be able to do that. So it can be easy to follow.
The Magna Carta playlist on my channel, right? So what will happen very shortly, I'm hoping, is our new webpage will go up. And within the new Voice of Freedom webpage, there will be a Magna Carta page and all of the lessons will go up there in order. I had hoped to have that done by sort of last week or so, but the guy who's building the website has been quite ill, so haven't really pushed him too hard and let him get back on his feet. That will happen. At the moment, you can find all of them if you go to the None2K. See, now a lot of people are subscribed to different channels because I have so many of them, because YouTube keep taking me off so many of them. But the main channel that I have is None2K. So if you go into the YouTube search bar and type in N for Nelly, U, double N for Nelly, the number 2 and the letter K, and you subscribe to that channel as well as the one that you're currently watching, then you will find all the Magna Carta lessons there. I'm pretty confident from 1 all the way through till tonight's. They're also going to be going up on Project Matilda, and as I say, we're going to launch Project Matilda with live streaming tomorrow. For that, we've sorted out all the bugs, and tomorrow I'm going to Brisbane to Dr. William Bay's protest meeting out the front of his hearing that he's not allowed to attend, where ARPA are going to decide whether or not they're going to take his license off him to practice medicine or not. So we'll be doing some stuff to Project Matilda from there tomorrow, and onto these YouTube channels as well. So there's a little bit of news on what's going on there. Fitz, I know that there are certain individuals in the medical fraternity who have been watching and listening to Magna Carta 1215 Learning Centre episodes, and I have had some queries from physicians and, doctors and nurses about how they might be able to employ Magna Carta 1215 in their current positions. They're still working. They don't really abide by what's going on. They want to be able to fight back, but they also want to hang on to their job. So maybe you can apply some thought to that, and we might have something for them next week.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, in the interim, guys, if you're actually listening now, Carl did post the links to the Telegram channel. That way you can have direct access to any questions like me and the other admins. When we're free, we'll answer them as best we can. So that'll at least give you something in the interim between now and next week. I think you just posted up now. Just a couple of questions. None2K stands for the news you need to know. That was one of the questions I saw pop up. So I'm just answering for you, Carl. How about that?
Thank you. Well done, mate. Awesome. And no, I wasn't drunk when I came up with it. It's just that YouTube wouldn't let me type all that in. And so I had the bright idea of cutting it down to none 2K. It seemed like a good idea at the time. I now see the error of my ways, but there you go. George has asked something here. Where did I see that go past? Is Bosie on tomorrow night? No, Bosie is not on tomorrow night. Bosie is not going to be on Tuesday nights until further notice. He has made it clear that he is unavailable pretty much all of August at this point. So I haven't had much of a chat. In fact, I'll be honest, I haven't had any chat with him regarding it. I know that through other sources that he's pretty busy in what he's doing at the moment, and I wouldn't expect to hear from him until maybe early September, if we're lucky. However, if something should happen, I am reasonably confident that he will pick up the phone and give me a call and tell me that we need to sit down and have a chat. So fingers crossed that will happen in the not too distant future. Just having a bit of a look if there is anything else there. Doctor's website. Yeah, right. So there is a new website, amps.redunion.com.au, I'm pretty sure it is. Now, AMPS is Australian Medical Professional Society, and they are going up against the AMA. I would urge people in Brisbane, particularly, if you can get to Dr. Bay's protest tomorrow, it's between 10 and 3 at 192 Ann Street in Brisbane CBD. Now, they're going to decide whether or not to deregister him, and they don't even let him into his own hearing. His lawyer is only allowed into the hearing via video conference. So, unbelievable. And, of course, these nameless, faceless people who make this decision are not medical professionals in any way, shape or form. They are bureaucrats, lawyers, accountants, and that's about the extent of it. I'm not quite sure what you'd call ScoMo's brother, but yeah, ScoMo's brother sits on the APRA board. In fact, I'm not sure if he doesn't head the APRA board. So if you've got something better to do tomorrow, then go and do it. But if you happen to be in Brisbane and you've got nothing to do, come along and help support Dr. William Bay. Now, AMPS are also having a public meeting on Wednesday night. I don't have the details with me right now, but that's also in Brisbane. And there will be a Q&A. I think there are going to be 8 or 10 doctors up for a public Q&A. Now, I did ask if I was going to be able to stream from that event, and I haven't gotten okay to do it yet. That probably won't happen. However, I do plan on going along to it and just seeing, what's, what they're saying. I'm very pleased that the medical side of the business is getting up now and starting to kick back. I think it's 2 years too late, but it's better than not standing up at all, I think. So that's a few of the things that are going on. And if you are in Brisbane tomorrow, please come along, come and see us. I'll be wearing our new Voice of Freedom shirt if I'm not wearing our new Magna Carta 1215 shirt. Fitz, we haven't spoken about the shirts.
No, I didn't. I wasn't aware that that's even in play. So this is learning for me on the job.
Oh, well, there you go. I have 2 of them. I've been wearing them rather, well, dashingly, if I say so myself. People may have already seen our logo, which we spent a lot of time and, can I say, a reasonably significant amount of money getting sorted. Now, that has been put now onto some T-shirts. Now, they were test shirts, and unfortunately, our night has come up a little dark on some of them, so it looks like a big black blob on your shirt. But however, the full-sized back of the T-shirt looks absolutely spectacular. So our shirts are being refined, but we will have some Magna Carta 1215 shirts available. If you would like to have one, it would help support the site, and will help keep the lessons going. And we may even be able to fund a new brown paper bag for Fitz to get him out faster.
What I did want to say is it'll actually help get the word out, because anyone who wears this, on their body, they're now a billboard for these lessons, right? So it's another way to actually get exposure and possibly start up conversations with people. Because
Yeah,
if nothing
people will
else,
ask. I've
well,
already
if
had
they-
people ask, "What's Magna Carta 1215?" You know, they walk up
Yeah,
behind
so-
me. I keep forgetting I've got a big sign on the back.
Yeah, so this is a beautiful opportunity to get those stimuluses out there in the face-to-face environment, which is the real nature by which change happens. Like on the internet, you can have some level of effect, but the real effect is the face-to-face experience. So, wearing this could be your in to other people's, natural inquiry about what's all this about. So I look at it as that option as well, guys. So just something to consider if you did want to purchase it, that you're doing it for more than one reason.
Yeah, true. Megs has just said misprints will be worth a fortune in the future. I hope so, Megs, because I outlaid a significant amount of money for, half good T-shirts. But anyway, we did it for that very reason, to find out what worked and what didn't. So we're not going to lose too much sleep over it. Red Union, Chew, yes. I know. Red Union says everything, doesn't it? My first interactions with Red Union are all around William Bay at the moment, and I haven't met William. I haven't spoken to William. He won't be doing any interviews until the 16th or later. And Red Union, I am still looking into. So I make no comment one way or the other. I would have thought they could pick a better name, but anyway, maybe they've picked it for the very reason you're referring to, Chu. So if that's the case, I'll be slightly saddened. But at any rate, I still believe that Dr. William Bay deserves our support. He is standing up and calling these medical bastards out. He certainly doesn't deserve to lose his medical license. If anything, those, what I believe to be 11 people sitting on that APRA board, need to be dragged out into the bloody street and made pay for the stupid decisions they've made, or at least asked to justify them, and they certainly can't. And they are too scared to show their faces in public, too scared to be publicly identifiable. Well, tomorrow they'll go into an underground car park, come up in a private lift, and go to a silent bloody room where they will make a decision via video link on a man who's done nothing but try and serve the people as best he could medically. I hope you can get to Brisbane tomorrow, 192 Ann Street, between 10 and 3 p.m, and help support Dr. William Bay. It's important that this guy doesn't lose his license, or if he does lose the license, it's important that the people rise up and force our government to rid ourselves of these bastards in APRA. And
So, Carl, can I just jump in if that's okay?
Yeah.
On the Telegram page that you put the link up to, there are actually letters of support that people can download, and they're really easy to fill out. And they can send that in and put Dr. Williams Bay, Dr. What's his name again? William Bay, is it?
Yeah.
Put his name as the, who you're supporting. And all you need is 3 witnesses, right? So you can do that just like you guys have sent postcards out to Aussie Cossack. There's that letter that you can download, print off, fill it out. It's easy to edit. All the editable bits are really clearly identified what you need to put in there, and then mail it off to the actual board, right? If you can find some names, that would be great. If anyone's good at researching, to research some names that are in that board, and we just start a campaign.
Yep.
And then we just send those letters of support off, because the more people that jump on, right, the more they start panicking, because you're using the actual law, guys, not the pretend law they invented, not our moral relativism, but actual verifiable law. The highest code of conduct of the land is what you're using. And they can't get away from it, because if they deny it, they're actually setting themselves up for being liable for treason. So this is how we can actually use this opportunity right here to actually start acting in the service of that which we say we seek.
Yep, sure. All right, well, I think we might leave it there for the night. I can't see too many other questions there. There's
a few people
thank
putting
you,
some
everybody who says they want a shirt. Great, we'll sort you with one. That's easy done.
I see a black extra large just being put in there by Irish. He's ready for
so look, if you are interested, folks, email me at voiceoffreedomhq@gmail.com. Email me with your shirt size. I'm going to get some by the end of this week in various sizes, from small through to extra large. I'm not going to get a heap of them because they cost a bloody fortune to make. But I think I'll have about 25 of them by the end of this week. So that might be a bit of a mixture of Voice of Freedom and Magna Carta 1215 shirts. I'm not quite sure what the mix is there yet. We are also getting some new Magna Carta 1215 shirts done, but I've got to send the artwork off to a very good friend of mine who has come out of the woodwork and reappraised me of the fact that he owns a textile business and can help me out with T-shirts at a pretty good price. So I'll be having a bit of a chat with him soon.
Giddy up. I just wanted to say Megs has done some work here, guys. She's actually got the APRA organization structure, the names put up here. So she's got Wayne Byers, B-Y-R-E-S, Chairman Helen Rowell, Deputy Chair John Lonsdale, Deputy Chair Margaret Cole. So someone's already done the work, guys. This is what we can do together, right? This is wonderful, right? This is acting in the service of what we seek. So people are already activated. So I'm really, really encouraged about that, guys. So if you want to jump onto the actual, oh, there you go. You've put it up for us. Wonderful. So guys, if you want to come back to this video, the names will be there. Jump onto the Telegram channel. The link's up here in the comments, and download the letter of support. You'll see it in the file section. So all you do is you click on the actual icon image of the group, and then you'll see a section that says files, look for letters of support, download that, and send to one of these names.
Absolutely. And like I say, folks, if you want a shirt, email me. Just email with your shirt size. I'll get back in contact with you when I know what the price will actually be for one. I suspect they're going to be around $50. It won't be any more than $50. Might be a little bit less. It just depends. We've got really good quality T-shirts, though, and they're not going to go out of shape. They're not going to lose color. And in fact, we wound up buying the shirts retail from a golf shop that they were $50, and we got them for $19 each. But the printing's where they're killing me. So anyway, hopefully all that'll change. It's such a learning process, and I've never had to do any of this before. So it wouldn't have been possible without your help, certainly getting designs done for not just this, but for a Voice of Freedom as well. People are seeing one of the other logo designs up tonight actually as my my avatar. So yeah, we've got a couple of interesting little designs out there that we can play with. Just want to say the pup that took a pee, thank you very much. You're a marvelous human being. And,
Aurora Australis, just have a look on the screen. The names are printed up. Carl's put them up on the screen just under the logo. So all the names are there, my friend.
That's what's on the screen there. And Megs, thank you for finding those. That's absolutely awesome. We'll leave them up for just a little bit longer. So shirts, let us know whether or not, at the moment, they're only going to be in white or black. And like I say, the white one, I'm not going to take my shirt off now and show you.
I just want to say, Megs, I agree with you. I'm waiting for a hoodie as well. So that's what I'm waiting for.
Okay.
It's cold down here.
Yeah, sorry. See, living in Queensland, don't think of hoodies. So, yes, I will be talking to my mate who is a Victorian and will supply top quality warm hoodies, not the ones you buy in Queensland. And we'll figure that out too. I think that those prices will be a little bit more than $50, but if you're happy to pay for it, we're happy to go and get them printed. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that does work. I was walking around today in the white Magna Carta 1215 shirt in Bunnings, and two people stopped and asked me what Magna Carta 1215 was all about, and it was the night that stopped them. They wanted to know about the night. So I haven't given him a name yet, Fitz. Maybe we should give him a name.
Hey, we could probably put that out and see what comes back, yeah? Like, to see what people inspire.
A contest for a shirt.
Sort of like that, yeah. See what comes back.
There you go. It's out there. A contest to name our night. Send your entries into in the subject line, put knight's name, and then put your knight's name and send the email off to voiceoffreedomhq@gmail.com. And Fitz, you and I, once we've got a suitable number of them, I guess we'll pick a winner. And we'll send a T-shirt, or maybe a selection of T-shirts.
I actually wouldn't even mind putting up a few suggestions and seeing what other people like with the ones that we cull down to our, we might pick up 3 or so names and see, what other people like, what inspires them. So it could be a collective effort, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. No, feed the machine. Saddam, it's not going to be Saddam.
Valiant effort, worth a go.
Valiant effort. And Percival, yeah. Look, Percival. Look, I'm a bit of a Round Table fan, so I'm thinking we've got to avoid, Percivals and Arthurs and
Sir Stabs a lot, eh? It's starting to get some classics coming through already.
Yep. So it's all going pretty well here so far. Opera Kevin. Barack, yeah. Well, Michael maybe. Certainly with a sword like that's more Michelle. But anyway, that's another story. Percival is the pelican, yes, and there was Percival at the Round Table, but I think most people remember him from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's where. Oh, Sir Fitz-a-Lot, snake legs. Impressive. Are you writing these down, Fitz? You better be writing these down.
I'm actually not going to I'm not going to write that one down.
No, I like that. I'm going to write that down.
I don't want to have my name on this one. I'm just not comfortable with that. So sorry, guys. It has to be something independent of me.
Sir Slay-a-Lot.
Thanks for the offer.
Yeah, I know a bloke who used to walk around with a shirt that said Sir Slay-a-Lot, but it was more to try and impress the women. I don't know how it ever did, but yeah, that's sort of how he was referring to it. Anyway, put your head down. Dennis. There, keep it simple. Dennis. Don't mind that. Keep it simple. G'day, I'm Dennis. Not bad. Don't mind that. Although I'm a fan of alliteration, so something that went with Knight or Magna Carta that sort of rhymed with it. Nobby the Knight, or you can't say Merlin the Magna Carta Knight, but you know where I'm going with alliteration. So go wild, folks. Email your names, suggestions into voiceoffreedomhq@gmail.com. We would love to hear them. Looking forward to it. So Sir Fitz-a-Lot. I've got that down.
Yeah, well, it seems to run with you, hasn't it? It's just resonating with you. So anyway, it's a bit too intense.
You are too good. All right. Megs has got a better one. I like that. Gladius. Sword in Latin.
So we're going to start going to biggest dickest territory now, are we? Like the old,
I have a very great friend in Rome. All right, we're going nowhere fast here. That's a lot of fun. The People's Night. Aussie gal. The People's Night. I like that. That has the People's Night, Dennis. I'm just trying to put them together. The People's Night, Bruce. Probably not. We'll get there. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, so Kevin, what you said, that's correct. It does need to go registered post because you do need to have evidence that it's been delivered. And yes, you are looking for a physical street address so someone can sign for it. That's just to do with when you send your letters off, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looks like the bots are back, Carl.
Yeah, we got the porn bots back. I'm blocking them as fast as I can see them, folks. But now that I'm actually here seeing them, an error occurred. I'll try and refresh that. Block the user.
We're going to crack the 2-hour mark if we don't get going.
Righto, so we'll get going. Folks, it's been a pleasure once again. Thank you very much to everybody. Don't forget to please like and subscribe. And if you feel the urge to throw a few bucks our way, then you can do that at vofhq.com. There's a donate button there. It's all secure, and we thank you. Shirts are coming, and don't forget, if you would like to then please like to get a shirt, then please email me your size, and I will tell you whether or not we'll have one and how many we'll have and when we'll have them for you, and we'll arrange payment and send them to you very promptly. It's all going to be in hand sort of by the end of the week, we hope, so it should be good for that. Thanks again, Fitz. Another really, really good night. Bugger off. We have a good night. KNITE. Thanks, Chris. Go forth. Think of a name. Email that name into voiceoffreedomhq.com. Voiceoffreedom. What am I saying? voiceoffreedomhq@gmail.com, and we will have our night with a name in the not too distant future. Thanks, Fitz, for everything again, mate.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for all your contributions, and yeah, giving us something to have a bit of a laugh over too.
Yeah,
I look forward to seeing you all
night.
next week.
Love your work. Have a good one, folks. Be safe if you're on the roads. Hey.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!